Welcome to the Andy and Friends podcast. I'm your friend Andy, and in this episode, I have Mati Greenspan. Mati is a CFO of a new Bitcoin mining company called Quantum Expeditions that I am pretty excited about. Now, previously, he was an executive at eToro and has quite a history in the world of crypto, including being ranked in Cointelegraph's top 100 notable people in crypto list. He has a lot of great insights into the crypto space, so I'm excited to not only talk about what he's doing with Quantum Expeditions, but also get his outlook into the crazy crypto market we're experiencing right now. So, Mati, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So, first off, as we begin this conversation, given that as I look over, Bitcoin is at $73,000, which, we're fully in new all-time high territory. And this is happening before the Bitcoin halving for the first time ever. What does that mean to you?
Well, it means that people are a lot more aware of what Bitcoin is and what it does. And markets are generally a forward-looking mechanism, right? Nobody trades Apple stock based on what they think Apple stock is worth today. They trade it based on what they think it's going to be worth in the future. So, whereas Bitcoin is still a relatively new asset in its own right. Uh, People are now understanding how to value it in the future and what it's going to be valued at later on. So they're already anticipating the halving, anticipating the supply shock and acting accordingly. But there are also many other factors at play here, including, the ETF and, general FOMO that's happening right now. And I do believe that there are already nation states with their knees deep in, but they haven't yet announced it because they don't want they don't want to send the price higher for themselves. They're not done buying yet.
I like that theory. I'm excited to see that hit the news. Okay, with the Bitcoin new all-time high before halving, with everything you just said, do you think that means then that the bull run will be shorter than everyone thinks? Or will it last until the end of 2024? We'll go into 2025. How long do you see this bull market persisting given the current conditions?
Um, I believe that, okay, so we have to put it into perspective. And though I don't always agree with, plan B and that, I think it's good to understand. I mean, his price predictions were certainly way off. And, we've done extensive research on his research and basically called it FUBAR. But it is important to understand the 4-year cycle and how it pertains to the halving. And more importantly is to understand how that ties into the U.S. Federal Reserve and their cycles of money printing, because so far they've correlated extremely well. Where every time the Fed has been printing, that's been a huge bullish factor, and then it's just lined up very well with just after the halving pump. But in this case, this is the first time we can really see who's really dominant. Is it the Fed or is it the halving? And clearly it's the halving because, well, maybe not actually, because the Fed has been kind of easing up or talking about easing up lately, but they haven't been printing money like there's no tomorrow as they had been in previous cycles. So, yeah, I think that it's really interesting times as the Fed prints more and more money. I think that that's going to add fuel to Bitcoin's fire and set and propel it higher.
As much as I see a problem with, kind of forever money printing and, horrible inflation and the whole fiat experiment, uh, as a Bitcoiner, and maybe you can echo some of this too, uh, I am excited about it in that every time there's QE, every time there's massive printing, the price flies. But also, I'm excited about the unfortunate side of it, which is I feel like every time inflation goes higher and higher, and every time they print more and more money, people see fiat for what it is and they lose confidence in it, as they should, because once went off the gold standard and we just make this funny money out of thin air, it should not have as much confidence as it did once upon a time. So, as bad as it is that people have lower buying power, I'm excited that that veil is being slowly pulled back over time. And of course, we want to see Orange Coin go up forever. But yeah, I mean, is that kind of what you see as the sentiment as these things happen, or what's your opinion about that?
Yeah, it's kind of funny, like, it's almost as if we want the system to be more sick so that we could take more
Uh huh.
medicine, right? But, I don't see it that way. I think that your analogy is better, kind of the veil being pulled back. The system has been broken and beyond repair for a very long time, and Bitcoin is the solution to that, and that will, um, be, implemented, gradually at first and then very suddenly, and now, we're seeing the very sudden just before our eyes right now, I believe. 2013, when I got into Bitcoin, that was, the early adopters phase. 2017, the retail, going according to the 4-year cycle, and then 2021 was the institutional adoption. So this is institutional part B, right? With the ETFs now, any money manager, any financial advisor can easily get their clients into Bitcoin. Any portfolio manager or hedge fund they're now talking about, not talking about if, but how much, right? What percentage of our allocation should be in Bitcoin. Um, but I the last cycle, I believe it will be the last huge bull run for Bitcoin. Um, Obviously, I can't tell the future, and past performance does not indicate future results or anything like that. But is nation states, right? That's the next leg of this, where we have, similar to the way in 2009 after the Fed announced QE, everybody rushed to gold because that was the only thing that people could say, okay, this is going to protect me against inflation. So, um, as nation states get into it and Bitcoin reaches full market penetration, there where the inflow is coming from. They're already in. Everybody's in the boat. Noah's Ark can start sailing instead of rising, right? And we just sail forward until eventually, the waters start to recede, and then we can say, okay, this is dry land again, and this is where we're supposed to be. And this is what's good for the earth at the end of the day.
Yeah. Riding off of all that, as a Bitcoiner, as someone who's very excited about the Bitcoin itself, Bitcoin technology, who's gone heavily into Bitcoin mining, I think this is a really good segue to shift gears and to talk about one of the main topics that I'm excited to talk to you about specifically, which is quantum expeditions. So, if people come from my channel, they maybe have already heard about quantum expeditions, but for those who don't know, can you explain what it is, what this new enterprise is that you've started?
Yeah, so Quantum Expeditions is a spin-off of Quantum Economics, which is my research and advisory firm, which was founded in 2019, just after I left eToro. And we did a lot of research at the time, specifically around popular narratives. And I think that um, we were covering at the time, Bitcoin's energy usage, and it was a very popular narrative. People talking about, is it bad for the environment and blah, blah, blah. And Elon Musk decided that he's not going to accept Bitcoin for Teslas anymore. And we all got mad. And we really wanted to get to the bottom of that. But what we inadvertently found was that Bitcoin mining, if done correctly, um, can be extremely profitable. And so in November 2011, just at the top of the market, when Bitcoin hit $69,420, the same day, actually, we incorporated Quantum Expeditions as a separate entity from Quantum Economics. Of course, I have to give credit to Oz Sultan, our CSO. It was really his kind of idea. He'd already done a lot of the background work. And of course, our research led us to Texas, and that's where we went in and we looked for somebody who really knew the lay of the land there, and we found Doug Hardwick. He's been in the oil and gas industry for 20 years. Um, so yeah, it's basically it's a Bitcoin mining project. About 6 months ago, we found we hadn't been mining yet. We were just kind of still structuring. We understood that there's a bear market. It wasn't the right timing to get in and start buying miners because they were depreciating in value, and we wanted to kind of wait for the next bull run. But in the meantime, we found Badgerland Mining Club, which is, if you're familiar with Justin Kramer, he was building that. And We just looked at, at both of the companies with it. This is we should be doing this together because we both really had the same vision in mind. And so we merged with Badgerland Mining Club. Justin became our chief operating officer, and we made our first purchase of 144 machines on in November, just at the exact bottom of the market. Just like specifically the like if we would have done it a day earlier or a day later, we would have had a worse price. But we hit the nail on the head just as Bitcoin was crossing 35,000 again. And yeah, and now we're profitably mining, and we have a crowd fund which is done under Regulation CF, where everybody for as little as $100 can get involved, become part of the community, and own a piece of the company.
So I want to dig into all the things you just said in more detail. For those who don't know what Badgerland was before the merge, what was Justin doing with that?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. We were kind of sitting on the sideline and waiting for the exact right moment to pounce. He was actually, I believe he was kind of like looking towards the crowdfund option, and we had already gotten ours off the ground. And of course, these things take a team, and it was just a perfect fit where his expertise coming in was exactly what we were lacking, and our formal structure and existing team, each one with his own extensive background and knowledge. It just made a lot of sense.
And so, crypto is the land, it's the Wild West, it's the land of opportunity. There's a million ways to make money in all of crypto. Um, why Bitcoin mining specifically? Why is that the pursuit of quantum expeditions?
Well, first of all, to support the network, right? Without miners, there wouldn't. But it's been, when I got into Bitcoin, you could literally mine it with a laptop, you know, and the Bitcoin mining industry has become kind of a closed industry, unfortunately, where it's very difficult for beginners or retail investors to get involved in any way, shape, or form aside from maybe holding the public stock. But you're holding a public stock, you're getting it at the end, right? Usually, these type of deals are only available for VC investors or stuff like that. Um, so we wanted to make sure that the community had a way to get involved here. Our seed round, I believe half of the investors weren't even accredited. It was just retail investors, people who were reading my newsletter at the time or following me on Twitter. So it's mostly just inner circle, and then but to answer your question, I mean, Bitcoin mining is like printing money. I mean, instead of buying it at $73,000 per coin on the open market, we're actually creating them for about a quarter of that. So I mean, why not? I mean, if you want to make a lot of money in this market, I mean, you can get involved in something and hope for a pump, or you can actually get your elbows dirty and get to work, and that's what we've decided to do.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things about mining in general, but especially with Bitcoin because Bitcoin is my favorite. It's my biggest position in my portfolio. It's just this weird thing where you can buy a money printer of your own. No longer is it just the in the U.S. the Federal Reserve with their money printers and deciding you can actually be a part of your own monetary creation. And in this case, one that has a very clear programmatic, um, you know, next 100 years we know exactly what the inflation is going to be to the to the year just about, and that's very exciting to be able to like run these things, support the network. And that is, I'm glad you said that at the very beginning because I put out content about Bitcoin mining and people are like, well, you should have just bought it. I would never do this. I'm like, well, enjoy the Bitcoin you're buying and you're welcome for me running machines to help you do that thing. So there is a real sense of, that actual support that I do like because that's the beauty of this thing, right? It's decentralized. These machines are spread out across the globe, literally, and we're all kind of doing our part to make this whole thing go on with no CEO, no central, oversight, um, and all that. So, You did touch on this a little bit, but I'd love to dig in deeper. It's a very exciting aspect of this. Talk to me about how quantum is looking at the profitability of this of mining and like your cost to get coins and how you kind of view all that.
For me, as the chief financial officer, I'm very focused on one thing, which is to ensure that the company is profitable and will remain profitable for many years to come. And the way that I think about that is very simple. We have a burn rate, which is how much we're spending, and we have an income, which is how much Bitcoin we're making. And as long as, the amount of money that we're earning is more than the amount of money that we're spending, we are a profitable company. Um, that will put us into a wonderful position within the next few quarters where we can say, hey, it's an incredible achievement for any company after 2 years to achieve, month over month profitability. I was on the phone with WeFunder, who's facilitating the crowd raise. And I told them that we're a profitable entity. Her jaw almost dropped to the floor. Like they don't usually get that, right? Like these, startups come to the platform, they're raising money from the public, and they don't a lot of them even don't even have a plan to become profitable anytime within the next 5 years. That in and of itself is already an accomplishment, and, the idea is that, within the next year or 2 after those type of but even before that, possibly, obviously, the SEC forbids us from promising dividends to people, um, but, our plan is to start paying them out as soon as possible. And yeah, just making money from Bitcoin. It's like simple as that. It's like there's not too many layers of complexity on that.
Traditional investing world, in that world, and 6 to 8 or 10% yearly return is considered pretty fantastic. One of the things that impressed me so much about Bitcoin mining is if you just view it from dollars in, dollars out, buy machines, get them set up, and I don't have access to probably the same kind of deals that you would as a bigger mining entity, but just even my calculations, even during the bear market, I was looking at 25 to 35% on the lower end yearly returns from investing into these machines and stuff. Again, that's dollars and dollars out. There's a whole different ball game. And so my next question is, what is the plan with mine Bitcoin? Do you sell to meet expenses? Do you hodl a certain amount? Like, what is the plans with all that mine Bitcoin?
Yeah, so at the moment we have the crowd fund, which is also facilitating our growth in a very large way. So we're using that for more, infrastructure and mining machines. Um, the Bitcoin that we mine, uh, well, let me tell you one thing that homing beacon for us is that this entire company is a vehicle for converting fiat money into Bitcoin and not the other way around. So we don't ever want to sell Bitcoin unless we absolutely have to. Um, Selling Bitcoin into dollars is also a taxable event. So why would we ever want to pay Uncle Sam for no reason? So as much as we can hold our Bitcoin, pay out expenses in Bitcoin, it's better for us. So just about everybody on the team who is taking the salary, I think almost everybody on the team is getting sweat equity. So everybody's got equity in the company as a major portion of their compensation. Even those who are taking somewhat of a salary are taking it in Bitcoin. And our energy bill, electric bill is paid in Bitcoin. Internet rent, all of those type of things. So we've not had to sell any Bitcoin to date, and I hope we never will.
Yeah, I have people ask me all the time, like, what do when are you going to sell your Bitcoin? Or what are you going to do when you sell your Bitcoin? I'm like, I don't, that's not a part of my thought process. I mean, I just was watching a Michael Saylor video. He was on one of the news networks, and they're like, "So what's your end game?" And he's like, "This is the end game. Get as much Bitcoin as I possibly can. What else? Why else? What else would I do? Hardest asset ever created. Why would I not want more of this?"
I love the remix of that as well. Did you see Little Bubbles' remix of
Uh
that? And
huh.
it's like there's a, there's a word we call for people who store their money in fiat. We call them poor.
Yeah, it was it was good. Uh, and then just for the geekier ones in the audience, what so of the machines you purchased so far, what machines are you operating?
The S19 K Pros.
Nice. Yeah, those are, I've got several S19K Pros, and they are super efficient. I love them. I want to get some more of those. So you mentioned a couple names, and you gave a little bit of a brief intro to them. But if you could expand on that and give me a kind of a rundown of who is on the team and what they're kind of bringing to the table to those who aren't familiar.
Oh yeah, wow. Our team is expanding at a very rapid rate now. And I'm very proud to say this because it's really like one of the joys of just even somebody like today was sending me a message like people are very people that are working on the team very excited about it, and it's a really warm fuzzy feeling for me, after building for this long and being able to facilitate that for people. um so the Telegram group is now at 17, and those are just inner circle people who are working for the company and close partners like yourself, advisors. I'm definitely happy to go into it. So our board members are four members that I already mentioned. Doug Hardwick, the CEO. I am the CFO and chairman of the board. Oz Sultan is our CSO. Don't ask me what CSO means because it depends on who you ask. It could be either chief strategy officer or chief security officer. We're not sure, but he's definitely fulfills both roles with ease. And then, of course, Justin Kramer, our COO. We also have the Sad Girls. The Sad Girls is Crypto Witch and Nightman Wins. They did our website, and they're doing the ordinals, the Badger. Have you seen the Badger ordinals? Yeah.
Yeah.
So they did that whole project. Trent Stevens, our man on the ground, he's got experience deploying miners across the United States. We've just onboarded a new IT specialist who actually has vast experience in building out systems and teams to deploy systems. So easy person we can scale up with. Nick, Action CEO. I'm sure you know Action. He's the one who introduced us, of course. James Pelton on the team. Uh, Toki's our social media manager. He runs the Twitter, the Discord, and everything like that. He brought on Munchie to help him out. We're also in partnership with the Pillars, so that's Mad Hatter and David. They're external partner who's really helping with a lot with strategy and the social media side, and they just coming out with a lot of good ideas, an extra pair of hands on deck. Then Warren and Smiley. So that's apologies if I ever got anybody, but that's pretty much the whole team at the moment.
I feel like there's, as I've learned more and more about the team and stuff, I feel like it's a really solid mix of people who have hands-on experience with Bitcoin mining directly, but then others who are like yourself, who are very broad, like crypto experience, but then also like Doug have connections and stuff in the world of oil and gas and energy. And so, I mean, was it a cohesive plan to bring this kind of synergy together, or did that just kind of happen as you met people in the industry?
It certainly is. It was the plan, is the plan, and it also just sort of happened. Is like literally a mixture of, and I know you're an atheist, but we feel very deeply that there has been at least Doug and I have had deep conversations about how this entire company, everything that ever happened to it, happened for a reason. And we even used the term divine providence to describe it. And we could go into like the things that happened along the way, and how every kind of misstep ended up being actually something very good, or vice versa. We've had people on the team that weren't good for the company, and we've had to get rid of them. But it always seemed to work out for the best of the company and for the best of the shareholders. So but the dynamic and the elements, right? Everybody being extremely well versed and experienced in what they do specifically on the team was definitely intentional. That's not something that just happens. But but the fact that we were able to get this team and everybody working with the exact synergy required for something like this, and that everybody gets along. We have, on our board, we have a Jew, a Muslim, and two Christians. So, and that everybody's able to work together towards a common goal for the betterment of Bitcoin and see a brighter future. I think it's magic.
Bitcoin is the great equalizer. I love it. Uh, so you've mentioned it a few times now, but I think it'd be a good time to go a little bit deeper into this. What is the WeFunder campaign? What is it all about? How does it work? How do people get involved? Talk me through that part.
Yeah, so WeFunder is basically all of everything that we're doing. Like, we want to be $1 billion company within the next 5 years. So, and I know that there's all kind of mining companies out there that'll, they'll sell a piece of a hash rate or an NFT or something like that. Um, I believe that if we want to scale up to the level that we want to, we need to do everything by the book, according to the rules. And the SEC's put out very clear instructions on how to raise money from the general public, and we are following those rules. They're called Regulations CF. It's part of Obama's Jobs Act, and it allows us to raise up to 1.235 million in this round. And it is facilitated through a platform called WeFunder. We've looked into a lot of different crowdfunding. Obviously, everything we do is well researched, but WeFunder, at the onboarding process is just very simple. You want to make an investment, just the way that they walk you through it, from the customer side. And also, they've facilitated some very, very large multi-million dollar raises before, which other platforms actually can't say. So there's a lot of platforms that you go on. What's just your maximum? You see, like, even the biggest ones are like more than 100K. Like, no, we're not, we're looking for, for larger amounts, in order to scale this thing up properly. Um, so yeah, you can go on the WeFunder, and then you'll see um, the way that you can invest, and the valuations that you're investing at, and the different perks for different levels of investments.
So who can invest? Like, what are any requirements to invest, and how much can you invest starting at?
So anybody can invest. The minimum is $100. And the $100 also gets you into the stretch goals. So stretch goals are when we've reached a cumulative amount of money from all investors. So at $500,000, we're going to create a board game, which is going to be like Bitcoin mining in Texas. Collaborative. It's going to be collaborative and competitive, right? Because that's how we found the mining industry to be. Everybody who should be your enemy is somehow your friend. I don't get, like, everybody wants each other to succeed. Um, and then once we reach $1 million cumulatively from all investors, we're going to organize a big all-out rave in the middle of the desert, and celebrate Bitcoin mining with beverages and special treats and stuff like that. Um, and yeah, and then anybody who's invested $100 can be involved in that. And then, obviously, for the larger investors, there are other perks. Um, Swag. We're giving out hats, t-shirts, hoodies, things like that. And then we're just working on a few. We've got a few more surprises coming in there as well. So stay tuned on that.
So yeah, talking about the WeFunder, I think is important because when I was first introduced to quantum expeditions, a couple of things stood out. Now, I'm someone who obviously I own Bitcoin just from buying it. I mine it myself. I'm in a couple of the kind of fractionalized mining ones where you buy an NFT, and I love those teams, love those people. I even own some publicly traded stocks. I've got some Marathon Digital and Riot, and take your pick. But this is the first time I encountered something to where I could buy into the company itself, not a public stock, not when it's already, whatever valuation or everyone who got in early has already made all their money or whatever. Early stage, get into actually buying into the company that was also, and this is just rare across crypto projects in general, like doing it according to like the letter of the law when it comes to SEC regulations. So I think that that's an important thing to note again for anybody who's listening and considering this is like that is very unique. And maybe you can speak to like, how, how rare that is in the space, but I think that that's something that people should probably take note about.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's why we did it like this. It literally is, there's no other way to go about it. You gotta do things, correctly. And if you don't, you're gonna get in trouble. And we don't want to get in trouble. We want to be doing this for many, many years to come. So it's got to be done using traditional rails. And it's a beautiful fu to the powers that be, who might not want to see a crypto future and have done everything that they can to hinder that crypto future. And they've got nothing on us, because they can. There is literally nothing they can pin against us, because we are following their rules to the damn letter.
Yeah, I like that. You walked us through most of the perks already, but one of the perks I would like you to go into a bit more detail about is the ordinals. Can you talk about those?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So Bitcoin ordinals, I have an extreme fascination with them, and I've been involved in the ordinal community since early last year when they first came out. Because I love Bitcoin, and I use Bitcoin um, as much as I can as my primary sort of type of money. And that means that, if there's somebody across the world you need to pay 20 or $50 to, Bitcoin is the way to do it. And I noticed the transaction fee starting to creep up. At some point, they got to like 11 or $12, and I'm like, I can't send $20 if it's a $11 transaction fee. And I started going, why are the transaction fees? I started researching it. I'm like, this is definitely happening because of these ordinals. And I drew up the comparison. I wrote it all out in my newsletter. And then I went to Udi Wertheimer, who was banging the drum about the wizards. And like, I'm like, dude, knock it off. You're ruining Bitcoin. Please stop. And he's like, take a chill pill, relax. We're not ruining Bitcoin. You can go somewhere else if you want to do your microtransactions. You're not going to be able to do it on Bitcoin long term, anyways. And you can't stop me. And as soon as he said, you can't stop me, it was like a clear, like, bell ringing in my head going, you're wrong. You have to change your mind about this, because I don't want anybody ever censoring me. And it just reminded me of, like, when the Bitcoin maxis came, and started telling me how I'm allowed to use Bitcoin or not allowed to use Bitcoin, or what I'm allowed to do with it or not allowed to do it. I'm like, fuck you, man. I'm like, I am, this is literally a censorship resistant platform. Um, and I understood that this is the direction that Bitcoin is going, where people can now inscribe actual data. It's so much better than an NFT, because an NFT relies on IPFS technology. um, the data itself is not actually inscribed on the Ethereum network. Whereas in Bitcoin, the data itself is held on all of the nodes. It's held and enforced by the miners, and is permanent forever and ever. So if you ever want to take a file, a JPEG or an audio file or a text file or anything like that, you can inscribe it onto the Bitcoin blockchain, and it will be there forever. And that is a powerful idea. So Udi then told me, hey, go buy yourself a bunch of frogs, which I did. They were like $250 at the time, and now they're trading at 10K. I promise you, I didn't buy them because I wanted to sell them. I bought them because I really wanted to be part of, this new direction of Bitcoin. So we decided that, we want to do something like, you know, I thought that the crowdfund was going to sell itself. Like, I'm putting out an amazing, like, offer here. People are just going to come and lap it up. But I guess, like, people have PTSD from this 2 years of bear market. They're being a bit more cautious, but also, more than that, there wasn't enough awareness. Right. That was the main problem that we had. Everybody who saw it, and we were, from everybody who saw it to the people who are investing, the percentages are quite high. But to reach that larger audience, when we're saying, what can we do? Obviously, to reach that larger audience, is that giveaways. Everybody's like, these giveaways. It's okay. We'll take these. We'll mint some ordinals, give some of them away, and some of them for the people who have invested. Actually, probably about 50 of them will be given. It's 555. And probably about 50 of them will be given away. The rest are only for people who invest in the crowd fund. You can't buy them. remember, if we ever give some sort of a utility to these, the SEC will be all over us like white on rice. We cannot actually promise that they will go up in value. They have nothing to do with the value of the company. They are simply our way of saying thank you for investing in the company. And if somebody else, they're on the blockchain, if somebody else decides that they want to use them in a game or make them transferable or stakeable or whatever, nothing to do with us, but they are more than welcome to do that. We can't stop them.
And then you mentioned the folks behind the design of the ordinals that you're doing with the company.
The sad
Can you talk
girls.
a little bit more about like what went into the design?
Oh man, you gotta get Nightman wins on because she's like or she's done a phenomenal job with these. Uh, Breaking the mold. She's talked about like, and I'm not a graphic artist or anything, but she talks about like literally inventing methodologies for doing this. She's done three different poses, which is not normal a thing in NFTs. Like in NFTs, usually there's like this one pose, and all of them are in that format. So in this case, there's actually three different poses that your badger can come in. um, and what's more is that ordinals until now, for the last year, have all about been mostly about getting there first and doing things from a technologically unique standpoint, using the pizza sats, right? That Laszlo Henwiks or whatever his name is bought the pizzas with. Like, there's trillions of them out there, right? Because they're sats, right? They're like pieces of Bitcoin, 10,000 Bitcoins. How many sats there are in there? But those Bitcoin that were used in that transaction are now inscribed in the Ninja. These were the things that were there, and there haven't been any projects that were about the art, right? And that's what we wanted to bring this to. Okay, let's take something that's actually worth inscribing on the Bitcoin blockchain forever. So that's where we're at with that.
Very cool. So, if people are interested, they go on the WeFunder and they invest in the campaign. Um, Once you have raised funds and stuff, what do those funds then do? What are you going to use those funds for in the immediate future?
So obviously, machinery and infrastructure. Those are the two main things. Um, Without divulging too much of our plans, we have the first site up and running. We're looking at a second site, and we're looking to get something that's going to be super scalable with a very cheap electricity cost, and where we can really grow into. We have the expertise, knowledge, and experience on the team where we're going to be looking at not only mining Bitcoin, but selling ASIC miners to the general public and hosting them. So this is our way of scaling. I mean, for hosting, it just makes a lot of sense because as a company, we don't have any volatility risk anymore, right? It's just a matter of you get it at X price, you sell it at Y price. You're making the difference for the company, and that just adds to the bottom line and adds more value for the original investors. And there are no shortage of people out there, myself and yourself included, who'll be happy to buy some miners and host them somewhere and take that risk as well.
Has there maybe this is too early stage, but it'd be crazy if I didn't ask. Like, is there any details around that yet? Like when the hosting type of stuff might roll out, some costs around it, any of that type of info yet?
I'm gonna keep my lips very tightly sealed for this one, because yeah, we've not divulged any such plans, and it would be remiss to do that without board approval.
Well, I'm excited to hear when you are ready to unzip the lips, and tell me the details. So that's a couple of bigger picture things, but what are some concrete things, and maybe you already covered a few of them that are on the roadmap for quantum expeditions between now and the end of this year?
Yeah, so um, start getting that swag out there. Plenty of people who are waiting bated breath. The ordinals, start getting those out. Um, Second site, and then yeah, after the crowdfund is closed out end of April, uh we're already in talks with institutional investors who are waiting to see what we can do with what we have right now before we start structuring something much larger.
It's gotta be a really it's gotta be pretty exciting to be where you're at right now, given what's happening with Bitcoin at this stage, and to be so early in the year. Like, I mean, it's gotta be a little bit surreal mixed with exciting, right?
Absolutely, Andy. I can't tell you. I really can't tell you how much I literally feel we did we did everything correctly in the correct time, and it's now paying off in ways that I couldn't have imagined and couldn't like I thought about, yes, and like there's a difference between that and then how it comes into reality and what it actually looks like on a day-to-day basis. Um, my wife complains constantly because I'm always at the computer. We're building this thing. I mean, also I've got other companies that I'm working on, Cora Finance and Quantum Economics and all of that stuff. But um, it is a lot of time and energy that goes into it. And I'm just looking forward to uh where we can be, by the end of the year, right? Given where we are right now. And um yeah, when we're on those board meetings, and just looking at, okay, what have we done this month, and looking at the fact that we have profits coming in and they're well in excess of our burn rate. And we're just going, yeah, that's a holy moment right there. It's just like and then um more than that is the people that are involved. So I mentioned like the people that are on our team and even the investors who come they and thank us. Like um we had our previous deadline for closing out the crowdfund. We extended it, but in the last week before that was over, we had people coming up to us, please, can you please extend it one more week, 2 more weeks? I really want to get in on this opportunity, but I just need another week or two to come up with the funds. And when I saw that happening, at least a dozen people come up and ask us that same question. I really understood the gravity of it, of what we're able to do and what we're able to do for the general public. And I can't lie, I love it, man. It's an amazing feeling.
Yeah, that's exciting. So, that gives a very practical follow-up question then. We talked about the perks and things and how you can invest via WeFunder. But once somebody invests in quantum expeditions, you're going to be building, you're going to be trying to make this thing as successful as possible. Practically speaking, how does that person who's investing, how do they make money in the long term? What does that look like?
Yeah. So first of all, a huge disclaimer on anybody considering an investment like this is that, um, and as a licensed portfolio manager, I've always got to give the disclaimers, right? Um, do not invest anything that you cannot afford to lose. And more than that, I'm going to go above and beyond that disclaimer. That's the canned disclaimer that they make me say. Um, but do not invest anything that you will need for the next 4 or 5 years. Because this isn't a get rich quick scheme. It's a get very rich slow scheme, that we hope will pay off within the next few years. Rather than, it's not a meme coin that's going to pump within the next week, and then 5 years later, who's going to remember? Oh, remember that one meme coin that we invested in? You're like, come on, because none of these can actually. 97% of the meme coins are going to lose 97% of their value. I'm pretty sure of that. And it'll make some people rich, and you hear about the people who made $1 million or whatever ridiculous amount, out of a small amount, but you don't hear about the people who went out and bought 100 coins and came up with bupkis. So I have nothing wrong with meme coins. I own Dogecoin since 2014, and I love it. And I got the Doginals too. Same story as the Bitcoin frogs, right? But as far as Quantum Expeditions is concerned, this is a private equity. So, public equity is like a stock, right? That you could trade whenever you want. You could buy and sell it. Private equity means that it's not a liquid asset. It's not a token. You can't just go on an exchange and flip it. So as far as private equity is concerned, I have private equity in eToro and in Lunar Crush, who I've invested in. Um, there are markets for them. There are ways to offload the shares, but it's not as easy as just going on an exchange, right? If anybody does need to get out for any reason, emergency, whatever, come to us first, because a lot of the time we can help with that, especially if the shares have gone up in value. We can internalize them or set them up with a buyer or something like that. Um, to answer your question, the main thing that you want is for those shares to become public, right? That we would like to happen, and the investors would like to happen, because once those shares become public, they are liquid and hopefully at a much larger value. Let's say if you're investing now in the early bird stage, which is a valuation of 25 million, and we go public at $1 billion valuation, that's a 40x on your money. But in the meantime, before that, dividends, right? I mean, we cannot promise dividends. The SEC makes us say that, but we're, as a profitable company, it is our plan to be paying out dividends as soon as possible. Um, n- n- Both because we want to show profitability and show that to the investors in the next round, but also because that's how our team gets compensated as well. We're all here with equity, and we all want those shares to go up in value, and we all want to get paid as well. So it's hard work, and it is deserving of it.
Love it. And when it comes to the WeFunder and the website and stuff, obviously all that's going to be in the description of this or in the show notes if you're listening to the audio only version of this episode. So that's a lot of great information about quantum, but I want to talk about a few external things that are more broadly Bitcoin that will definitely affect Quantum Expeditions as a Bitcoin mining company, and I'm really curious about your insights into these. And the first one is something I feel like I keep coming up against it, and I keep feeling like people are just sleeping on this. And maybe you don't agree, maybe you do, but transaction fees. I think everybody is just not thinking big enough for transaction fees. And I'll give you my quick elevator thesis of this, which is we have all this inflow. We have these ETFs that are out there, with unprecedented access to Bitcoin, and we could have the craziest bull run we've ever seen. 5 trillion, $10 trillion coming into the entire space, 2 to 5 times what it was back in 2021. And if there's so much activity happening on Bitcoin, we have ordinals, take your pick of things. This is going to inflate the mempool is going to fill up. People are getting ultra competitive with miners to get transactions to be pushed through. I'm just curious what your outlook is for fees on Bitcoin over the next couple of years.
Yeah, higher fees are good, and this was the direct outcome of the conversation that I had with Udi. I knew this for a long time, but and I previously used this analogy as far back as I would say in 2017, where we were talking about utility tokens, and specifically like XRP. And I like to use the analogy of a lead pipe. I don't know if you've heard that one before, but basically, if you have person A on one end of the lead pipe, and he wants to send a gold bar to person B on the other end, he puts the gold bar into the lead pipe. And for the time that that gold bar is inside the lead pipe, the value of that entire mechanism is gold. But as soon as the person takes the gold out of the other end, it's lead, right? So what does the network retain? It retains the transaction fees, right? That's what's actually retained by the network. In Ripple, it's silly because, the transaction fees are like 0.0001 cent, which is a great selling point for for to say, okay, you can transact this way, but as far as the network growth is concerned, the network doesn't actually retain any of it. In this case, the network does retain more and more, the more the higher the transaction fees. But also, if people are paying that, this is like, fees are not mandatory, right? They're not. This is a market. You can set your fee higher or set your fee lower in Bitcoin, or wait for the network activity to die down. I do this all the time in order to optimize your fees. If the fees are up at $30, you say, I'm gonna wait a week and then I will send my transaction. Right? I don't have to send this transaction right now. If I do have to send this transaction right now, well, that is a testament to how valuable this asset is. Right. And that directly means that if the fees are going up, it means that Bitcoin actually itself is more valuable and worth paying for, and worth paying those larger transaction fees. When the ordinals came out, and as far as like in January when we started mining, the transaction fees were really high, and then you see these people like the maxis who are like anti-ordinals, and they're like, no, we should cut out them from the network, and we'll have all the miners just disregard their transactions. And then they go to the miners and they're like, fuck no. That's extra revenue for us. We'll keep that very much. Thank you very much. Um, yeah. So as far as I'm concerned, I mean, obviously there's a push and pull, right? If the transaction fees are $200, per transaction, it does make it more difficult for people in third world countries or whatever to use Bitcoin for its intended purpose. But we're at the point where I don't think that they need that as much either. Like if they can afford to get some little piece of Bitcoin, on the salary they have, great, as a store of value. But for transactional purposes, there are other networks that do it better, do it faster, do it cheaper, and that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. So I think that those networks will take over the micro aspect, and possibly in the future one day, you know, it'll be very rare to meet somebody who like knows how, or maybe even a specialist might do Bitcoin blockchain transactions or whatever. You might have somebody in a firm or something. That's his job. He's the one who calculates the fees and makes sure that he routes the transaction properly and minimizes the fees based on the UTXOs or whatever. Because only a specialist can really do that without accidentally paying too much money. Who knows? Far as I'm concerned, in the near term, and what the market's doing right now, for us as a miner, higher transaction fees are good because it means more money in the door.
Yeah. And even if you do take a BTC maximalist point of view and you look at it that way, just in the ecosystem of Bitcoin, there's lots of solutions being built that are layers on top of Bitcoin that can solve all those problems for other countries and things that are, need more maturation. They're very, very early. There's no real usage yet, but that could be the case. So I'm of the opinion that, especially if Bitcoin becomes a world reserve asset and is a settlement layer for a lot of the big stuff, it doesn't matter if it's slow. And I mean, if you send a couple $1 million and it costs you $200 for the transaction fee, that's still cheaper than the current day, centralized alternatives, and it's faster too. But it's funny you're talking about the ordinals like that, because I remember this was last year, whatever, maybe in the fall, or maybe summer, when some of that was first really gaining some traction and popping off. And I'd looked at my machines that day, and I was like, "Holy shit! They're making twice as much as they were yesterday, just out of nowhere." And as a miner, yeah, it's kind of a laughable thing to me that there's people trying to build mining pools that cut out ordinals and stuff. I'm like, I don't want anything to do with that. I am in this to get more Bitcoin as a miner. Why would I like? That's the entire incentive for building this incredible network, right? Like that's why we do it, to get Bitcoin out of the equation. So it's really funny you said that. But on the topic of like increasing fees and stuff, I think if this goes the way it's been going, we could see um, transaction fees, a block rewards totaling more than the current block rewards post halving. With the base block reward with 3.125 when it's after the halving, and then multiple BTC on top of that in just transaction fees. I mean, do you see that kind of an outlook for the next year or two?
It's already happened. I remember distinctly a tweet from Adam Back where the transaction fee was at or just under 6 Bitcoin. So yes, that happens, and yeah, I believe that it will continue to happen, and the ordinals are taking off, and I think that the value proposition is more than just the hype. Yes, there is a lot of hype around it right now, and hype comes and hype goes. But I mean, if we're talking about, you know, that versus the existing technology and where everybody thought NFTs are going, and they will go, and people are developing Ethereum. I'm not knocking it. Love Ethereum. I invested in the DAO in 2016, and so there's nothing wrong with that. But Bitcoin's value proposition is better. So, I believe that will continue to grow as an industry. People are going to continue to develop the technology for ordinals, especially where it pertains to things that you want permanent, that you want to remain forever. Long after you're gone and your great 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 grandkids, your file will still remain. That can only be done on Bitcoin at the moment.
And then one last question for you here before we end this thing, and that is, people hear you talking about Bitcoin. You're a Bitcoin mining company. You're deeply steeped in this world. You've been in the space for a long time. We're just in the precipice of a hopefully very major bull run. Bitcoin is still hovering around 73,000 as I'm speaking to you right now. Where's it going this bull run? Where are your price targets for Bitcoin this time around?
Yeah, it's pinned on my Twitter. I tweeted on January 1st. We're headed to 280,000 by the end of the year. Um, it's it brings us well above the rainbow, if you're familiar with Eric Wall's rainbow charts. But this cycle, I believe, is inherently different than than the last few, and for reasons mentioned previously. Um, I believe that we're, and we're looking at I just tweeted today, um, the ETFs, the spot ETFs. I have to admit that I underestimated them as an analyst. I'm like, yeah, so what? Like, yeah, some institutions, they are lapping them up. They're like literally like you can see the volumes on them rising on a regular basis. Like in the beginning, they were big, and then they just get bigger and bigger. It's like you can see them just ramping up their activity. So, yeah, there'll be pullbacks along the way. Where the 200-day moving average, don't forget, is still below 40,000. So it would not surprise me to see like sudden pullback. People get over. Please, people, go easy on the leverage because the faster it gets up, the more violent the pullbacks will be. Um, you got to we got to take out you got to liquidate wreck a few plebes on the way. If we don't, then it's not really a bull run. I mean, every previous bull run had major pullbacks, 70-80%, and that's totally fine with me because that's where we get to make those type of movements where we maybe buy a little bit more on the down or sell a little bit more on the high, and that comes into play. And when you're a Bitcoin miner, I mean, those type of transactions that every time you're making a transaction, you're calculating, should I wait a few hours, should I not, should I pay out should I pay my bill a little bit early right now because the price is a bit higher, right? Stuff like that comes into play pretty regularly. Um, but price is what it is. You can't really predict. And for those who get on my case, when I do those type of tweets that say, what the price is going to be by the end of the day. Remember, I'm not predicting, I'm projecting. I hope that, Bitcoin will blast through the ceiling and go up from here to, $500,000. And I will say that it can, and it is possible. And those type of percentage growths have happened in the past, and why not? And the more we talk about it, the more it becomes a reality. Um, but I'm in no way, shape, or form actually delusional enough to think that I can see the future.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of people are missing what's happening in the world of ETF with Bitcoin. I was utterly surprised as I watched this all unfold. The past 2 months have just been mind blowing. The amount that they're gobbling up. Um, the fastest growing ETFs of all time at this stage is just wild stuff, and the supply of Bitcoin is about to get cut in half. It's going to become more scarce, and they're going to keep buying it up. So if you're listening to this and you haven't studied some of that, if you haven't looked into that, this is your wake up call. Go pay attention. You'll see why we're so bullish on this thing. But two, Monty, I hope that you are correct. I would I deeply would love to see 200, $300,000 Bitcoin. So I'm going to project that with you. But in the meantime, thank you very much for taking your time to chat with me about all this stuff. It's some of my favorite topics, and I appreciate you being on the podcast.
Thanks a lot. And for anybody who wants to learn more, feel free to visit the Discord. We're always there. That's where we're building. And you can always feel free to talk to us directly.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for tuning into this episode. See you in the next one.